Welcome to Intentional Divorce Insights. I'm Leah Hadley, certified divorce financial analyst, accredited financial counselor, and the founder of Intentional Divorce Solutions. I'll be your guide through the complexities of divorce, finance, and emotional wellness. Join me as we uncover practical tips and empowering insights to help you navigate your divorce with clarity and intention.
Hi, friends, and welcome back to Intentional Divorce Insights. I'm so happy that you are here with us today. We have a fantastic guest. I just met Maria, a couple weeks ago, but we had such a great conversation that I am so excited to have her here on the podcast to share her wisdom with you all. This is Maria Natapov, and she is a co-parenting and step-parenting coach who helps step-parents and divorced parents navigate the beautiful, messy journey of blended family life. Her goal is to support parents in creating workability and fostering communication so everyone feels supported, valued, and considered. She also serves as vice chair of the Sparrow Collective, a nonprofit devoted to creating supportive housing for women and children going through divorce during their most vulnerable time. Her personal journey has shaped her work deeply. Maria met her daughter when she was almost 7 and initially tried to talk her then boyfriend out of dating her because she didn't think she was mom material. Thankfully, he didn't listen, and a year and a half ago, her daughter asked her to adopt her. Maria considers it one of the greatest honors of her life to have officially earned the title of mom. Welcome, Maria. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the warm intro. It's great to be here. I'm so excited for this conversation, Leah.
Fantastic. Now, one of the things that you and I talked about when we met was all about the BH2O Framework, which I am just so fascinated by. And we're going to dive into a little bit about that. Could you just give us a high level of what is that?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I am thrilled about this co-parenting curriculum. One of the reasons is that unlike many others out there, it actually it really supports parents and gives them the tools and the space, because it's a 16-week curriculum, to create transformational shifts. Because many co-parenting programs typically address the surface level of do this, don't do this, say this, don't say this. And as we all know, if we've ever experienced walking into a room, there's other people there. We have no idea what happened, but we can feel the tension, and it's so thick. We can cut it with a knife. It feels uncomfortable. We feel it in our body. We sense it. Maybe we're seeing it on the faces of these individuals, perhaps in their body language. So naturally, nobody's saying or doing anything that seems negative or uncomfortable, but you can feel the conflict still hanging in the air. The presence of it is there. And that's what BH2O really gets at the heart of, is actually the core of the conflict, which has to do with our mindset, has to do with our ability to regulate our central nervous system, and has to do with what is the lens through which we are using and really creating everything, including our intention for where we're moving, including how we're responding, how we're making choices and decisions, and really who we're being. That's the easiest way to put it, is who we're being. So that this curriculum gives access to shift who we're being so that we can create actual workability in the co-parenting dynamic. So it does not require the co-parents to be best friends or necessarily be at the same place at the same time. Success looks very differently depending on the circumstances and the individual needs of the family and the individual, what is available from each of the co-parents. However, it is important, and what we support parents to get present to and really center and ground in are the values that they want to instill in their kids. So when we clarify that and get to the root of what that is, it's a powerful North Star for how then to navigate everything else, ensuring that we are upholding those values and not unintentionally undermining them, which so often is the case.
Absolutely. A lot of parents really want to protect their child's well-being during the divorce, but often the conflict just makes them feel powerless. How does the BH2O framework give them back a sense of control?
I'm so glad you asked. It's one of my favorite things to highlight because it's so true. How many of us, having gone through divorce myself with my first marriage, just feel like we're totally a pawn or essentially like a football, soccer ball being kicked around, right? At the mercy of everything, the process, the professionals, maybe our soon to be, you know, former partner. Yeah, so the way that this curriculum supports individuals is we really explore, again, I mentioned the mindset shifts. So we really explore, how are we approaching this situation? And usually, for example, many of us get triggered, which is a very natural phenomenon. And oftentimes, what's at the root of being triggered is identifying how we're feeling, number one, which, to be honest, can be difficult for some folks, especially those who are not used to that work. And the other
Right.
piece is understanding what is it about, why are we getting triggered? What is a need or a core belief that is getting ignored or trampled on? That's usually a big component. Once we're able to identify that, not only do our emotions, the intensity of our emotions instantly drop down, however, also once we have that insight, we no longer need to wait for somebody else or a circumstance to change for us to feel better. We can find a way to meet that need ourselves, which is really powerful. So
Absolutely.
essentially, that's just one example. There's also other self-regulation tools and awareness exercises. I love this curriculum so much because one of my goals is always to make things accessible and engaging for everybody. And this utilizes so many different tools and ways of teaching that truly do support a multitude of learners. So, and that's one of the things I love. And so there's different ways that participants really learn, and I would say build the muscles, just like when you go to a gym and you're slowly building the muscles to achieve whatever your fitness goals are. Just like that, we go little by little. We do it in bite-sized pieces, and it's about consistency of building new habits. Right? Because it's not enough to just say, well, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. Well, wonderful. But our brain needs to know, if you're not doing this, what are you doing? So that's the accessibility, but also the consistency that is available. And really, ideally, if the co-parents are doing this work together, which is, as I mentioned, ideal, they are learning how to shift how they hear each other. We go very slowly. We utilize reflective listening and truly ensuring that both voices are heard in outlining the concerns of a particular issue, as well as outlining the potential resolutions, right? What could it look like to resolve this or address this concern and do whatever needs to be done. And it's really key that both parents learn through a safe space and a neutral party like myself as the facilitator how to have those conversations and start to shift towards where they agree versus only focusing on where they don't agree or where they differ and getting stuck in their old patterns, essentially. So this is a powerful way that moves them forward through a very structured approach where they, though, are at the helm. So through this process, they actually create a 2-page business plan for their co-parenting, but it is
Interesting.
yeah, but it is entirely guided by them. And I am there as a guide just to facilitate, to hold the guardrails, to also help them ensure that they actually reach their goals. So we are creating a powerful process, just like in a business, right? If you are co-CEOs, you don't need to be best friends. You don't need to go to events together or go to, celebrations or whatnot, but you do need to find a way to communicate effectively. You need a process for making decisions, also collaboratively, that are effective, that is effective. And you need some standing operating procedures to ensure things are running smoothly and that your goals and your roles and your process is clear and predictable, right? So that, again, there's workability. That's exactly what we create together through this program. And it incorporates, what does communication look like? What kinds of things are communicated about? How frequently what is the platform, what time of day, which day of the week. I mean, down to that detail. And maybe it's not necessarily every week, right? That's one, but those are some of the things we discuss and create together. The other piece is, what are the goals? What are their co-parenting goals? What's most important? Aligning all of that from their why and from their values, as I mentioned. And finally, what are the boundaries that are going to support you in reaching those goals? Because goals are great, but they're nothing but a fantasy if you're not actually able to live into them. So how are you going to support yourselves to actually live into them? And this plan, again, both parents, because they co-created it, have buy-in. However, this is not something to use as a sword against your co-parent if they fall off afterwards and aren't as committed suddenly or not doing some of these things. This is a way to hold yourself accountable. So it really only takes one co-parent to truly lean into this process for the major shift to happen in the dynamic of the co-parenting relationship and in impacting the children. So it's quite powerful.
It sounds like it. And it's so interesting. The parallels between creating this plan and like the financial planning process
Oh, really?
are actually very similar, right? Yeah. And one of the things that we talk about with financial planning is it's not static, right? Life changes, things change, kids grow up, right? Different challenges come up, but we have that structure in place, right? So that way it's easy to make those adjustments because we've gone through the process initially. I'm just fascinated by this. I'm curious, Maria, what's the biggest mindset shift you've seen in parents when they start working with you and how that changes the way they co-parent?
Oh man, there's so many. I would say one of, like, for example, and I'll be very transparent in saying my husband and I enlisted the help of the creator because we worked really hard over the years. You heard a little bit of my journey. I went from step parent to adoptive mom. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, but suffice to say, we've gone through a whole journey of developing our system for communication, etc. We got on a phenomenal page, but we recognized that our kiddo, who's still being impacted by the aftermath of the things she has lived through and is still in her healing journey, we got curious because we're like, there might be something we're not seeing about how we could better support her. She's supported, she's all the love, but there could be, right? We're human beings and we're really close to this. And that's, I think, the value sometimes of working with a professional that we often overlook is we think, oh, I have these skills, I have these tools. But let me tell you, even professionals depend on other professionals because they recognize it's valuable to have a third party perspective on some of these things because we're too close, we get in our own way. So that's exactly what we did. And I would say our biggest shift in this work was, I remember distinctly my husband is like, oh, I don't need to rely on you to meet that need. I can take ownership of that moment and I could go find a way to meet it myself. I mean, that's just one that comes to mind. I think just filtering everything through our values, right? Like really in a very clear, concise, intentional way, truly utilizing that as the North Star in a nuanced way that, again, we get to revisit because what's another beautiful thing about this program, and there's so many, is that we start and then it builds on itself. So yes, we're introducing new skills and new tools, but everything gets reiterated. And in this beautiful blend, it just keeps getting swirled in, right? Like if you imagine, for those of us who are bakers, perhaps, if you're mixing in your ingredients, right? Something like that. That's sort of what it's like. So it's wonderful because it's not like what you learned. It's like, oh, I learned it and now I'm on to the next thing. No, it's all integrated and it all builds on each other. And as you are creating these things that you and your family need, these structures, these systems, identifying what are you going to lean on, you get to reiterate it and reevaluate it, test it out, come back and say, this worked really well. This didn't really work at all. Or I hate this, right? Because how would you know? Some of these things you're not going to know until you put it to the test and you see how it works. And that's what's really beautiful. That, and I think in that process, you learn that, wow, okay, I am human. I'm going to fall off. There's going to be messy moments. But now I have a way to confidently get back up and move forward. I don't have to stay stuck there. right? I don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, I've tried everything. What else, right? Because you have a predictable way to move forward. And the other finally beautiful thing is it really is designed to grow with you because it's values based, right? So that's the cool thing. Your values are not going to change likely, but what's needed, right, to live out those values or instill those values
Right.
in your kids may, and there's room for that.
Yeah. So for a parent or a step parent who's listening right now, who kind of feels stuck in survival mode, what do you think is the first step they can take today to start moving forward?
Yeah, I think the first step is give me a call. I think so often we think we have to do it all on our own or wait till the dust settles or wait for XYZ to happen. And I'm here to tell you, I've never heard everybody who reaches out to me or I speak with is like, oh, I wish I knew you sooner. I wish I called you sooner. Right. And I'm a big proponent too. And I think this one is really key, regardless of which professional you work with, whether it's someone like myself, someone like you, Leah, or others. I am a big fan of get your information and identify your resources before you need them. Because by the time you need them, you're already stretched to the max. There's fires, right? You went from the firing pan into the fire. You don't have the capacity to now start to inventory and do your informational interviews and do your pros and cons lists. Now you need to know, okay, I relate to this. I can work with this person. I felt comfortable with them. I align with their values and philosophy. This will work, right? The fit and the comfortable is so important when you're working closely with these professionals on something so life altering, right? The stakes are huge. And so I just cannot stress enough. Make your phone calls. It doesn't hurt anything. I offer a free assessment call. You can hop on the phone. You can gauge, do you feel comfortable? Do you like, is this Maria wackadoo or does she have any value to provide me? Like, what's the deal? And you can get all your information. And if you don't need it yet, great. But if you do, you'll have it. And when you do, you'll already have it. So
I think this is such an important point that you're making. And it's one that I don't think gets talked about enough because I literally, just before we talked, Maria, had a call with a woman who got divorced 8 months ago. And there are some financial things that are going on where, yes, 8 months ago, it would have been great to have a conversation. Even before the divorce was final, it would have been better to have a conversation. But right now, she feels so much pressure because now some decisions need to be made and some action needs to be taken. And suddenly she's like interviewing financial planners, trying to figure out like immediately. And she's like, how do I make this decision? And in her particular case, it's a pretty significant dollar amount that is at stake for her. And so she really needs support in making sure that she does the right thing in this case, or she could lose quite a bit of money. And it's like, she just feels so much pressure and it just didn't have to play out that way. But I think you're right that so many people wait until it's like such an urgent need and it just makes that decision-making process so difficult. Whereas if you give yourself the time and the space to get to know people, get, referrals from people that have those conversations, you just don't feel that same pressure.
absolutely. You just give yourself the space. Again, like we talked about before, living into something. Some things you just have to have experienced. Then you have to sit with it, and then you'll know
Yeah.
whether it's the right choice for you or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a lot of times when emotions are running high, parents can unintentionally make things harder for their kids than they had hoped. How does the specific
Mhm.
framework help them respond in ways that can really protect their children's emotional health?
Yeah, wonderful question. So, for example, if you have a parent whose value is, okay, I want my child to feel completely connected, right? Connection is so important. I want them to feel like they're important, they matter, they're connected, and that their parent is attuned to them. And then maybe that parent, that same one, when their kiddo is at the other parents having their parenting time, is like texting the kid a bunch of times or calling them, right? Well, unintentionally, that actually undermines their goal and their
Right.
value. because that kiddo is distracted because they're like, well, I'm with this parent and I'm trying to be here and I'm trying to do this thing and I'm engaged. And at the same time, mommy's calling or daddy's calling and I want to answer the call, or why are they calling? What is this about? I want to be sure to be responding to them. And kids, especially younger kids, they feel the pressure to respond, because
Right.
one thing that's often not talked about and misunderstood is, so kids, when their parents go through separation or divorce, they're starting to feel like they're on the chopping block, like they're next. The reason being that they've just witnessed their most secure, most, right, like their security blanket for everything, their mommy and daddy's relationship. The only thing that to them is like, this is rock solid. And suddenly, right, it could feel like somebody's getting rid of somebody else or whatever. There's a breakup. So now they're like, okay, well, when am I next? Am I going to be getting rid of? Am I going to be traded in? Right? That is their thought process. They often don't understand that it's there, but they can't identify it. They can't name it. And they certainly have no clue of how to bring that up to their parents. So out of that, they just want to they're going to be on their best behavior, right? Because they're scared. They don't want to cause anything to happen. So again, yeah, it's just so important that all these little things that seemingly, right, to the naked eye, it seems so innocent. What's the big deal? So I called my kid because I love them, right? I'm reaching out. They're going to know I love them. But actually, so that's just a little taste of how we unintentionally undermine our values and create all kinds of chaos and put kids in the middle. And we have no intention of doing that. I'm convinced 99.9999999% of both parents completely adore their kids, want them to be safe, want them to feel loved, secure, adored, and be carefree. But that's just one example how unintentionally that can happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can you share a story of a parent or a step parent who went from feeling like really hopeless and overwhelmed to feeling really confident and connected through this work?
Yeah, I mean, I just spoke to somebody yesterday actually, and she called me and she was so stressed out. She was so concerned. They're at the beginning of their divorce. It hasn't been finalized yet. And she's identifying all these things that she's concerned about. I mean, she identified her things too. She owned her things. It's important to acknowledge. But she also was pointing out some things that her co-parent is doing that she's really concerned about, and she's sharing what her daughter is saying, and that she's nervous. And because of course, again, we all want what is best for our kids. We all want them to be okay and secure. And we recognize how, most people I speak with, when I share about this program, they recognize the value. And so, once we got off the phone, when I just gave her some clarity and we discussed some options of how to move forward and what could be available, and I actually gave her a tool to use as well in the meantime to kind of support herself and tend to her needs, or at least have more clarity around what her needs are in the moment. She literally told me, she's like, I feel so much better after talking to you. Thank you so much. And then we said that we would be in touch soon. But, right, so it's just knowing, like, don't sit in the overwhelm. I often say, my husband actually initially said this, so kind of stealing it from him, but he gave me permission. I remember discussing this notion to him, how, all of us have this like internal voice that runs and is not very nice to us, especially at the time we need a kind voice the most. And he's like, yeah, because we're crappy friends to ourselves. Don't hang out with yourself, especially when you're in that moment and you're spiraling or you're dealing with a major thing. Go talk to a friend, because you're not going to be a good friend to yourself. And I'm like, wow, that's so true. We are not good company to ourselves. And when we're spiraling, our emotions are running all over the place, as you identified, Leah. We don't have the capacity to access the part of our brain that can offer us good insights, right? Because we're stuck in a lower functional part of our brain that is freaking out and is in survival mode. So even though we may be able to, generally speaking, access a more creative problem solving and win-win solution, at that point in time, it is not available to us. So we have to rely on tools and strategies that we've learned or habits we've built, or we have to go and spend time with somebody who can be a better friend to us. And by that, I mean, offer us some clarity and really talk us through to a solution. What I love about this program also is that it is truly designed to preserve your autonomy. By that, I mean, the hope is that when you go through all of this, as you build your system, as you build your habits, as you identify what are your go-to, supports to lean on, meaning internal supports, right? Processes, skills, tools, ways to calm your central nervous system, ways to have clear, more effective communication. You don't need a third party any longer to be a referee to your disagreements. So I get to work myself out of a job, which is very exciting for me because I want people to be autonomous. I want them to feel truly empowered, and not just in the moment, but long term. And what a beautiful gift that you get to share with your kids, because they're watching everything you're doing. So as you get to do this, you're modeling for them, you're teaching them, and you are passing along all of this goodness to them. It becomes a part of their internal framework.
Excellent. It's such a powerful framework. I think this is so fantastic. And I'm excited for people to learn more about it. Maria, where can people find more information about you?
Oh, thank you for asking. So, of course, at my website, synergisticstepparenting.com. That's 2 P's, everybody. But I'm also on LinkedIn as Maria Natapov or Synergistic Step Parenting. And, of course, on Facebook as well as Maria Natapov. I'm happy to connect. I'd love for you guys to DM me if you want. Of course, email me at maria@synergisticstepparenting.com. You're welcome to call me at 617-419-0878. So I'm available.
Sounds like it. So Maria is going to be there as a resource for you, which is wonderful. And you have a great free resource for our audience, right?
I do. Yes. It's called Family Fusion. It's a 6-step guide to collaborative co-parenting. And I'm really excited. I would love for you guys to go and grab it, because I've recently been told, and I feel like this is such a huge coup, by a marriage and couples counselor, that she felt that it was such a, it's just so full of goodness and actionable tips. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm not the only one who thinks that. So please go grab it. There's tools for everybody. There's tools for step parents. There's tools for parents. There's some facts that are often not talked about that I just flat out put out there. And there's ways to support your kids as well, especially if, for example, both people have kids that they're bringing into the equation. There's ways that, you can support them in coming up with a system that really works for them to feel included, and to have more cohesion, because that can often be challenging. And then just ways to care for yourself, because these situations are not easy. And everybody has their own role to play, and it takes a toll in different ways on everybody involved. So there's definitely some self-care tips in there as well. Yeah, just love for you to grab it. And I'd love to hear your feedback too.
Terrific. So we will include the link to that in the show notes, as well as the different websites and social media platforms that Maria mentioned, so you can find her and really utilize her as a resource. I personally know, over the years of co-parenting, we've had our ups and downs, and, bringing my now husband into the mix and having a step parent, and it's all difficult, right? We all care about our kids, but, we're adults and we have our own challenges and things that we're bringing to the table. And so when I saw that Maria not only works with co-parents, I happen to know lots of coaches that work with co-parents, but also step parents. I was so excited to share her as a resource. So thank you so much, Maria, for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing this conversation and creating space for it. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the amazing ways that you support families going through these transitions to ensure their financial stability and security, and that they're making sound decisions going forward.
I appreciate that. And for our audience, thank you for being with us here today. We will see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining me on Intentional Divorce Insights. It's a privilege to share this time with you. I hope each episode offers valuable guidance to navigate your journey. If you find our content helpful, please leave a review to help others discover the benefits of intentional decision-making in divorce. Until next time, take care and continue to embrace your path with intention.